Yesterday, history was made. If we can, I'll let John get everything up first. But seriously, history was made in Bristol as Bristol passed a motion to create slavery reparations. Now, it's worth quickly going over Bristol's history in the slave trade, which is why the statue of, I think it's Thomas Colston, was taken down forcibly by a bunch of radical activists because he had been a slave trader. That is true. He had been a merchant. I mean, he personally hadn't grabbed the slaves and moved them, but he had moved money, which had moved men to go and do this. And part of the sort of transatlantic slave trade triangle. Bristol is in the British corner of that triangle, where the ships would go down to Africa, the west coast of Africa, places like Dahomey, which is now called Benin, which we're going to talk about in a bit because they're very amusing. And then they'd be shipped over to the Caribbean, and then those ships would take the profits back to Bristol, where they would be given to the people who they were owed to. Obviously, we're not in favour of the slave trade. Can we say that categorically?
Yeah, I think we're about there.
Yeah. Okay. Very liberal in our views. We're against slavery.
I mean, big surprise, I know, I'm sure.
Slavery bad. Brave, don't cancel us. I myself am a product of the slave trade. My ancestor on my father's side, going back probably about 5 or 6 generations now, would have undoubtedly been a slave, which is how I got the surname Benjamin. I don't actually know what that ancestor's name was, but I do know the name of his slave master, which was Benjamin, something or other. And that's how I got my name. So that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. I also wonder if Carl X doesn't have the same ring to it, does it?
No, not really. But anyway, the point is, I guess you could say I'm kind of personally invested in this story in a way, because I mean, if they're handing out reparations, maybe I'll move to Bristol. I can get a train in. It depends on.
I mean, they literally owe you reparations by this.
It's for people of African descent, and that actually means me. So okay, I'll take it. If you're handing out the money, I mean, I'm not going to pass it up. But anyway, so the Bristol City Council had a Zoom call where they hailed as a moment of international significance Bristol's attempt at righting historic wrongs. And I've got some bad news for you, Bristol Council. The past is actually fixed. We actually can't change it. You can only change the future, and I don't think that this is the way to do it. But anyway.
Look at that. I noticed someone pointed out in the chat. Number 2 there in the side points. Women should be able to be as sexual as they like. Number 4, strip clubs to be banned in Bristol.
Well, yeah, Hooters got banned from Bristol as well.
Oh, man.
They were going to set up a Hooters there, and a bunch of feminists objected to women expressing their sexuality, and they got it cancelled. And to be honest with you, as a patriarch and a proponent of dadism, I agree. I agree with the feminists. Cover up, you horse. Anyway, obviously, joking aside, ignore that. So, yeah, so the whole point of this is it's about atonement. And they literally say the word atonement. It will galvanize support for reparations and an atonement plan led by grassroots organizations to address the city's role in the transatlantic trafficking of enslaved Africans and its enduring impact. The thing is, Bristol is kind of the end destination of this. So you didn't actually get slaves going to Bristol. It was just money that went to Bristol. And people like Colston, who was himself an aristocrat and Conservative MP at one point, he spent that money on beautifying Bristol. Bristol's what used to be quite a nice looking city, and he spent millions and millions of pounds back in the 18th century, so a lot more in today's money, on various philanthropic endeavours. He built poor houses, schools, hospitals, things like this, and it's like, right, okay. I mean,
kind of morally grey there.
Yeah.
It's like the drug lord spending money on Colombian villages to make them better.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, well, I mean, I don't approve of the way he got the money, but the way he spent it was pretty decent. But I guess that means that he needs to be consigned to history because the money is tainted.
Yeah, but with the complexity obviously being that at the time of Edward Colston doing what he's doing, it's universally accepted, whereas, the drug trade today isn't universally accepted.
Yeah. Yeah, it was not something that was invented by Europeans, but it was something that was ended by Europeans. When I say Europeans, I mean Brits. Bristol was is also calling for the government to set up an all-party parliamentary commission of inquiry to look at how reparations might be delivered. So they're resolved to do something. They just don't know what that is. They're going to write to Parliament, and they're going to be using the support of the African heritage community. But African is spelled with a K. I don't know whose spelling that is.
So Afrikaan?
Yeah, Afrikaan, but only with one A. So I guess that's the Greek spelling of African. these organisations through Bristol, using the emerging Bristol African Heritage Community-led Reparations plan, which will include institutions, city strategic leaders, corporate leaders, strategic programs, initiatives, and cross-party politicians. And when we say cross-party politicians, we mean Labour, the Liberal Democrats, and the Greens.
Yeah. I mean, cross-party. I hate that term in British politics. It's
Yeah.
like all the leftists from different parties have agreed. Oh, good.
Oh well, wonderful. I mean, honestly, I'm honestly thanking. I wish I was religious sometimes, because then I could thank God that the Conservatives haven't actually just jumped on this. Like the Conservatives are at least like, no. So that's a start.
Bare minimum.
Yeah, bare minimum. Yeah, but no, to be fair, the Conservative group leader in the Zoom call, we'll play a clip from him in a minute. He was actually pretty good. But this is my favourite bit. If the source of racial injustice in the 21st century is the economic injustice or domination of the global economy in the 17th century, then a more just economy is the only sustainable way to achieve racial justice. I do not agree that the economy of the 17th century is the source of racial injustice in the 21st century. Just don't believe it. Too much has happened in the intervening 4 centuries for that to be the case.
I mean, how far do you even take that then? The injustices of the 12th century from the Normans against the Anglo-Saxons are therefore being manifested in the inequalities of today. It's like,
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you could argue that. Overthrow the Normans.
Yeah.
That's what I say. Yeah, so it's like, this is ridiculous. Too much has happened. And there are too many examples of, I would say, black people in prominent and powerful positions or have achieved positions of massive wealth to say that there are direct institutional barriers that prevent them from accruing this kind of wealth, because they have it, they have the power. So
yeah,
how would you argue that?
The kind of things that don't exist when those barriers exist.
Yeah, exactly. When those barriers exist, these things just don't happen. And of course, they want to recognise that reparative justice should be driven by African heritage communities' experiences, voices, and perspectives to ensure that advocacy messages not only reflect but also respond to the real needs of the community in order to recognise inequalities. Now, what I love about that is literally, we're black, give us money. That's you can boil that down to just, we want to be in charge of you giving us money. Well, how much money do we owe you?
I mean, me too.
Yeah, exactly. Me too. This is what I'm gonna.
I also like money,
and I'm also of African heritage, so I will take it. Thank you.
Yeah, you can actually do that.
Yeah, I will.
The Irish getting any money out of this? Can I blag?
Not. I'm afraid not. You're not African with a K.
Oh well.
Get wrecked. But this is the thing. We'll get into the complexities of this in a minute. So. The funny thing about this, it is of international significance that this cross-party motion has passed, said the former mayor of London. Yeah, I don't think it's internationally significant. I think that you really wish you were internationally significant, but when I start playing some of the clips of this, you realise how parochial and local this all is, and how very small and embarrassing and cringe it is. Reparations, as I hope was made clear in the motion, does include but goes beyond monetary compensation. The contribution of African civilization, culture and people versus just how we have been treated is one of the world's great paradoxes, says one of the other speakers. Yes, I love that. African civilization.
What does that even mean?
No, exactly. That's exactly it. Oh, well, this is a contribution of Asian civilization. Which one? Like, Africa's a massive continent. It's enormous. And the thing is, like maps, globes, like when you look at a flattened map, Africa is compressed, right? The projection of the map compresses Africa. You don't realize that Africa is absolutely bloody enormous, on its own. It's just a continent. It's massive. And so to say African civilization, you're including at once like the head shrinkers of the Congo with the ancient Egyptians, with the South African Boers. It's like, what are you talking about when you say African civilization?
The Zulus and the Moroccans are the same people.
Yes. That's exactly what they're saying. They have compressed it down to African means black. And all blacks are therefore Africans, and therefore all Africans are therefore oppressed.
It's pathetic.
It's totally inaccurate. The motion itself was passed with 47 voting in support and with the 12 Conservative councillors voting against it, which just goes to show you how left-wing Bristol is. But well done for holding the line there.
Yeah. That is actually one of the interesting things. If you live in a Labour hellhole like I do, the local Conservatives in those areas are usually the most reasonable people, because they're just radicalised by the nonsense on the left. Like, you have to deal with these nut jobs all day that you stop caring about
Yeah.
offence. And you're just like, no, this is just true. Just leave me alone. Absolute lunatics.
The thing is, I want to know what goes beyond monetary compensation. What are they going to ask for that goes beyond
Slaves? I mean, what else?
I don't know. I want to enslave your children because your ancestors enslaved mine.
Well, what's the argument against that?
I don't know. I
mean, they're literally arguing for like, oh, well, we were enslaved, therefore we demand stuff. And it's like, well, what stuff? If not money.
Yeah, I assume property, right? So I assume they're going to be like,
Well,
right, we want access. We want to
This boy is my property.
Yeah,
right?
we want.
So
we
you can
want
take
to
the
be
white
given.
boy.
Well, the city hall or something. I don't know.
No, you take the white boy as your property.
I guess so, but I'm against slavery. So they're going to find
Well, they're
themselves. They're going to find themselves in trouble there. But anyway, so it goes on, blah blah blah. So let's start going through some of the clips because some of these clips are great, right? The Greens. Let's hear from the Greens to start with.
Indeed, support for reparations is National Green Party policy. As we heard from Kabu's statement, reparations is not about simple financial recompense. How would you even begin to calculate what is owed for the millions of lives ruptured, the brutal mistreatment, the families torn apart,
Then it can be a
the
pound.
murders, or even simply for 200 years of labour stolen and all the generations of missed opportunities that could have been built on that wealth had it stayed in the hands that created it?
Okay, the answer is obviously mathematics. That's how we calculate numbers, Eleanor.
You are talking to the Green Party.
Yeah, I know. But that's the answer, is we work out the value of these things, we adjust for modern monetary inflation, and then we calculate just the people who are involved. And this has been done, but we'll get to that in a bit.
Yeah. But also, if it's not about the money, well, it can be a pound.
Yeah, if it's not about the money, why are you not specifying the thing that it's about? I mean, that would be more pertinent, wouldn't it? It'd be like, well, don't worry about the calculations. Let's talk about...
If you just want an apology, well, that's already been done.
Yeah.
So...
And if you just want people to pay for the ending of slavery, that was done too. We finished paying off the slave trading debts in 2015. So I got to pay for the ending of the slavery of my own ancestors. Good news.
A weird thing.
It is weird, isn't it? It's really weird how this entire conversation can't just be compressed down into black good, white bad. But we're going to get to that. The next one is, I think it might be the Greens again, actually. Let's go for the next one.
Globally, the Black Lives Matter movement has put a spotlight on the horror of systemic inequality and racism. In the UK, the Green Party and Green Party councillor Cleo Lake have led the calls for an all-party parliamentary commission for truth and reparatory justice, with Lambeth Council passing a reparations motion in July last year, followed by Islington Council and the Green Party National Conference last autumn. So I welcome today's motion.
What thing to wear?
Islington, Lambeth, like affluent Labour voting constituencies. Like, yeah, we passed reparations motions. And what did that do? What did that mean? Like Islington North and South, Corbyn
Jeremy Corbyn's
and
constituency.
What's Islington South? It's
I can't remember.
Is it Emily?
I'm gonna Google it.
Oh, I know. No, I know the one. I know. I just can't remember her name off the top of my head. She's insufferable. Insufferable Labour
Emily
virtue.
Thornbury.
That's it,
There
Emily
we go.
Thornbury. Insufferable, incompetent Labour virtue signallers. And they want to follow in their footsteps, because why not? Why not? And that chap was wearing a nice T-shirt that said reparations over a green map of Africa.
All of Africa as well.
All of
not
Africa.
West Africa.
African civilization.
Jesus. I mean, that's the thing. Like, it's not just West Africa, where the British were. Like, it's got to be the whole thing.
Yep.
So, I mean, were we including the Arab slave trade and
Yes.
whatnot as well?
Yeah, the Arabs need to pay reparations. And I mean, if that's the route we're going down, I damn well want that to be the case.
Jesus, they're going to get taxed a lot more.
Yeah. I mean,
For anyone who doesn't know, when they took their slaves, the reason there's no black people in Arabia is because they cut off all of it. All of the male parts there, they cut them all off.
Yeah. It's blood evil. But I mean, the slave trade generally is obviously an evil thing, but there are gradients of evil. Some things are more evil than others. But anyway, let's go to the next Green Party member.
For a white and elderly male to speak on issues of race
Then don't.
is a daunting experience, and one I accept with the greatest care and respect. If what I say in any way sounds insensitive, it is because of my lack of command of the English language.
Then we literally don't need to hear from you, do we?
No, we're ending it there. Moving on.
Moving on to the Lib Dems. Let's see what the Lib Dems have to say about this.
We Liberal Democrats strongly support that Bristol City Council should join and take the lead on a national dialogue and campaign. Thank you, my lord.
Thank you very much indeed.
There's a Bangladeshi flag behind him there.
Sultan Khan from the Liberal Democrats.
Jesus Christ.
He spent quite a lot of his...
what is that literally translated? Ruler, or something like that?
Yeah, it actually does, yeah. But
sure, his family never enslaved anyone.
Yeah, I'm sure his family come from the lowest caste in India. But he does spend quite a lot of time complaining about how oppressed India was and how Britain apparently took £42 trillion worth of wealth from India.
Oh, I know where he's getting that from.
Yeah.
It's a nonsensical
of course
author.
It is. Okay, yeah. I'm happy to agree that the Indians are also under the boot. Anyway, moving on, we go to finally Marvin Rees, the black mayor of Bristol, who is going to condemn the concept of a post-racial world. Let's hear from him.
And the reason I think discussion is so important is because I think too many people have tried to grab a post-racial world. They did it around Obama's election, and myself and Edson Burton were on radio saying, we can't be naive. A post-racial reality is not something you grab a hold of. It's a place you come into when you've been very race literate in the short and medium term. That means understanding the role that race plays, not just a historical act, but as an ever-present factor determining life chances, life expectancy, the chances of poverty, social immobility, health outcomes, all those things that make up life today.
So, the black mayor of Bristol wants us to be in a pro-racial world full of race literacy. I just hate it. I hate everything about it. I don't want to talk about your race. I mean, look at this entire thing. The City Council of Bristol have got together to talk about race and how basically white people are bad and black people are good, and therefore reparations.
Don't worry, it's just on college campuses.
It's just on college campuses. Yeah, I know. Like, I don't want to have to talk about this every day, but it's goddamn well everywhere, right? But of course, Mr. Marvin Rees, despite the fact that he's the mayor of a city, one of the major cities of England, he's still oppressed.
I suppose so.
Gone.
And as the first directly elected black mayor in Europe, which is a form of overturning those old racial hierarchies, I can also tell you that I'm not just a mayor. I still experience the world as a black man. And even within this organization, I experience the consequences of having a black skin. So race is an ever-present reality that does not disappear just because we would like to wish it away. We have to grapple with it, but do it alongside a conversation around class and social immobility.
Right. So if even the mayor of Bristol is oppressed because he's black, then maybe there's just no hope.
I mean, what if we make him prime minister?
Will he still be oppressed?
I suppose so.
Even more oppressed? I mean, I don't know how much the mayor
He'll
of Bristol...
be receiving more comments, so therefore...
Oh, I got oppressed on Twitter. Look at all these replies from white nationalists in
As
America.
I take my £400,000 a year salary.
Yeah, I dread to think what the mayor of Bristol's salary is.
So he's going to get reparations from this, presumably.
Yeah, he's going to get... The mayor of
He's
Bristol...
voting to give himself money.
Exactly. The mayor of Bristol is going to be voting to give himself money on the basis of his skin colour. Welcome to the 21st century. Oh. And of course, we got led out of this debate by a lady who was pretending to imitate Rosa Parks.
What?
Let's listen. Go on.
Well, in my opening speech, you heard me reference quite a lot to the US and America. So I'm actually going to close by invoking someone who is known as one of the mothers of the movement, and I'm going to represent as Miss Rosa Parks. The past? Is this the present? And do we have a future? Sometimes you are bound by your circumstances, ground to your particular environment and station in life. And other times in freedom, you can travel in your mind to where your soul takes you. And so I find myself here today on this bus in this ancient city of Bristol. I know some people say I'm their hero, and that surprises me sometimes because I heard of some of your heroes and sheroes you got right here. I mean, I know you won your thing on the buses, the Bristol bus boycott about 10 years after what happened in Montgomery. Yeah, I had a friend in Virginia who sent me a newspaper cutting.
Why must I suffer to listen to this?
Right? I mean, I was listening to this on the bike ride on the way into work, and I was like, okay, this is kind of boring. And then it got to that, I was like, okay, this is gold.
Jesus Christ.
I, a Bristolian raised and born woman, is, because of my black skin, going to start putting on an American Southern accent and pretend to be a civil rights hero from the United States. I'm so oppressed, give me money.
Well, she knows there's a camera there, right?
And that this is being broadcast to the public, presumably. I mean, they explicitly make it clear that this is being publicly broadcast. And, I mean, that is just the most cringe I've ever seen in my life.
They have no shame.
No shame whatsoever, right? But the Conservative Council, the one Conservative councillor who actually got to talk in this, I mean, that went on for 3 more minutes or so.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I know, I did. I was tempted to make you sit through it. But Councillor Steve Smith actually gave a liberal perspective on this, not a communist perspective on this. And I just found myself in total agreement. Let's play Steve's clip.
The Conservative group are unable to support this motion today. And I know that will disappoint many people and some will question our motives. So I want to spend my 3 minutes explaining calmly and respectfully why we take that position. We believe the motion risks exacerbating some divisions by promoting a binary view of the world when the reality is much more complicated. And I should stress, I don't think that's anybody's intention. I know this comes from a good place and it's done with the very noblest of intentions, but nonetheless, that risk is there. The motion appears to treat everyone of any African heritage as a victim, set apart from the rest of society, when in fact we know it isn't that simple. The title that's used of African heritage communities covers huge variation within it, and 10 minutes on the ONS website will show you that. For example, figures on education outcomes show that kids from Black African backgrounds achieve above average progress at Key Stage 4, while those from Black Caribbean backgrounds perform below. In fact, social class appears to be a much bigger driver of progress than ethnicity. Poor boys tend to be the worst off, regardless of which ethnic group they belong to. On income, the gap between white and Black British people is much smaller than that between either group and South Asian people. Again, there are marked differences in outcomes between Black African and Black Caribbean groups, particularly among women. Now, I draw no inference from these statistics other than that binary view of the world is a fallacy.
Apart from using the word fallacy when he means falsehood, completely correct. Fallacy is a logical argument that the conclusion isn't supported by the premises. A falsehood is just mistaken information. But other than that, he did a great job. And he is right. This is an old page from the BBC, when the BBC used to tell the truth about things, where they had some excellent stuff. We'll go into your section in a minute, but I just want to be very brief about this. The 18th century kings of Dahomey, which is now known as Benin, became big players in the slave trade, waging a bitter war on their neighbours, resulting in the capture of tens of thousands, including another important slave trader, the king of Wodya. King Tegbesu made £250,000 a year in 1750 selling people into slavery. King Gezo said that in the 1840s he would do anything the British wanted him to do apart from give up the slave trade. And this means now that Benin itself has been put on the rack in various other circles. We can get to the next one, John. This is something that they are now having to deal with because Benin as a country doesn't actually, it's much bigger than Dahomey was as a kingdom. And so it actually includes many of the people that the Dahomey were enslaving and selling off as slaves. So they're complaining that, of course, this means that the elites in the country are the descendants of slave traders, and the people who are not the elites are the descendants of people who were victimized by the slave traders. And we get into various other interesting identity conundrums, like the Dahomey warrior women. If we can get on the next one. So these, if we can get the picture up, Dahomey, the king of Dahomey, had a personal guard. He was a warrior king, obviously. He led the army into battle, very well-trained professional army that would go off fighting their neighbors and taking slaves. That they would sell, well, to other people, then to the Europeans when the Europeans arrived. And these were celibate female warriors who were well-trained in battle, up to 6,000 at one point, and they undoubtedly took many a slave in their time. Very feminist, very empowering, you know. So, I mean, I'm just saying...
bring back our girls. As a joke.
Yeah, so it's as Steve Smith was saying, it is really not adequate to just say people of African heritage were slaves. If you enjoyed this segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can watch the full broadcast live every weekday at 1 PM UK time on lotuseaters.com.